We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
With new entrants lining up to try and swipe the GOP primary nomination, it's time to ask who benefits from a crowded playing field. And with the DNC denying debates for their contenders, what does that mean for the voting public? Well, we're very fortunate to be joined by Liberty Nation author, Mr. Joe Schaefer, who's been chasing pretty much every fantastic angle you can think of on the pages of libertynation.com. Thanks for coming back, Joe.
Hello, Mark. Thanks for having me.
So, first question. GOP field, it's getting more crowded now. We've got Mike Pence, Chris Christie, I think it's the governor of North Dakota, Doug Bergen, is also in. This is a crowded field. How does that play out in, let's call it the electoral math?
I think it's very fascinating because you see the people getting in, they're establishment Republicans, and the Republican establishment does not want a big field. They see that as benefiting Trump, diluting a possible opponent. They want someone who's going to be big enough to match up with Trump, one guy that they can all coalesce around. And so Chris Christie and Mike Pence jumping in, and, Asa Hutchinson is in, and Nikki Haley, all these people, they're really, Trump is smart enough. He welcomed Tim Scott, and it's like, hey, the more the merrier, come aboard. I think the Republican establishment knows, hey, this isn't good. And it should be interesting. Is the Republican establishment going to torpedo some of these candidates, tell them to get out when they're really their people? That's going to be an interesting dichotomy. You may be seeing Republican establishment criticism of these candidates more than Donald Trump criticism, and why that would be an interesting turn for the next few months.
Yeah, it does seem that in the 2016 election, you had such a broad field. I mean, it was kind of a free-for-all, wasn't it? And then what happened was Trump made the most noise and basically drowned everybody out because nobody could really make their own pitch because there were so many people involved. Now, how do you think that's going to play out for Ron DeSantis?
So that's what I would be worried about with him and his campaign. If you remember 2016, it really did look like Trump and the seven dwarfs, or however many there were. And you can just go back and compare.
I can confirm there were seven dwarfs in the Snow White movie.
Yes,
I don't know how many there were on the debate.
How many were on that debate stage in 2016? But you can really go back and make some easy comparisons that are not going to look good for some of these candidates. Nikki Haley, you can compare to Carly Fiorina, if you remember her. She was the tough woman, and she thought that was all she had to be. And that doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's not going to work for Nikki Haley. And I think the worry for Ron DeSantis is that he's going to be caught in that shuffle, in that mix. And there actually is a comparison that would be, I think, very unfavorable for him, and that would be Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz played the part of the guy more to the right of everybody else, but that the establishment would embrace if it meant keeping Donald Trump from getting the nomination. And if Ron DeSantis goes down that road, and I think the Republican establishment will encourage him to go down that road because they would rather have DeSantis over Trump, no matter how much they may not like Ron DeSantis. But if Ron DeSantis goes down that road and embraces the support of people that the Republican grassroots voters hate, what is he going to say if Mitch McConnell is praising him left and right? What is he going to say if Paul Ryan is saying, hey, Ron DeSantis is looking good? Is he going to come out and say, I don't want these guys' support? Because that's what he's going to have to say to keep the Trump supporters happy, that he's going to need, eventually anyway, and certainly in a general election. So my big concern, if I went with the Ron DeSantis campaign, is that the Republican establishment coalesces around him, and that actually turns out to be a bad thing for his fight against Donald Trump.
So it seems to me what you're saying, and I might have this the wrong way, is that the Republican base is really the Trump base. I mean, that's the majority, isn't it? But it's not necessarily Trump, is it? It's the anti-establishment base. Right. Is that right?
It's the anti-establishment. I think there is a mistake. It's an easy, lazy trope for the mainstream media to say that the MAGA, the America First people love Donald Trump because of his personality, his character, what he is. they like Donald Trump because of the views he represents, the positions he supports. The big box media doesn't want to admit it. They don't want to give these people credit. They actually have principles. They actually have things they believe in. And if another candidate, can convince them that he, upholds those principles, then Trump will have a challenge. I truly believe the point right where we're at right now, Donald Trump is in that lane that he is the anti-establishment candidate. It's so clear who the establishment is afraid of. And for Ron DeSantis, like I said, he's got to be worried here because if some people start saying, hey, you know what, DeSantis isn't bad as Trump, that's not going to help Ron DeSantis with these anti-establishment voters who may not necessarily go for Trump otherwise. But if they see Ron DeSantis getting the support of the people who have already expressed a willingness to support him, it's going to hurt him a lot more than it's going to help him.
So you're saying that the burning of bridges is a tactically sound strategy for DeSantis. I think that kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
But it's a major mistake what he's doing going after Trump. And he's doing it kind of half-heartedly because, he's not a dumb guy. He's a very smart politician. And I think he realizes saying things like, we don't need an entertainer. It's a shot at Trump. It's a lame shot at Trump. It's a Chris Christie type of statement. And I think he knows he's not supposed to be swimming in those waters. It's dangerous for him. But, he's got these professional Republican campaign advisors staring him in this direction. And, if he tries to run that kind of campaign, it's going to kill him. I think he's smart enough to realize it, but I think he has to do it anyway. He's going to have to go after Trump to beat him. And yet, I think by doing that, he's going to ensure himself a much harder path. I don't think he can win criticizing Trump. And yet, if he's really going to try and go for the nomination, perhaps he has to do it. It's a tough situation for him.
Liberty Nation's senior political analyst, Tim Donner, he's written quite extensively on how at the moment what you have is two large egos that appear unwilling to work with each other simply because of the positions they're in. But that if Trump and DeSantis went for the same ticket together, which seems unlikely based on the ever-increasing animosity between the two men, but I think that would be for Republican voters and especially for America First style voters. I think that would be quite the dream ticket for them. Let's very quickly just jump on to what's happening with the Democrats at the moment and their primaries. Now, it seems that we have, two candidates so far in Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Marianne Williamson who are challenging Joe Biden for the nomination. But the DNC says no debates. Now, I know this has riled some people who are very public figures who are basically Democrats. They always vote Democrat. They espouse Democrat policies, but they seem to be angry. I think Jack Dorsey was the most recent one, the founder of Twitter, who was decrying that there's not going to be any debates. No debates equals no democracy is what the message appears to be. What's your take on it?
And Jack Dorsey, what I saw, I believe it's true, endorsed RFK Jr. Just as we're recording this, I think just a couple hours ago, actually. So that's an interesting take. I think it's similar to the Republican field in a way that you have to be anti-establishment to really get in with the grassroots people. Now, does that mean you're going to win a Democratic primary? No, because by all logical means, Joe Biden should not have been the nominee in 2020. The grassroots Democrat voters made very clear throughout the primary they did not want this guy. But there was no alternative that really came through. Everyone was mediocre. There just wasn't a palatable alternative. And finally, it came down to, well, are we going to go with Bernie Sanders or are we going to go with Biden? And the Republican establishment, the Democrat establishment was able to use South Carolina, a state that they were very much in control of, thanks to Jim Clyburn and others there, to basically hand that over to Biden and flip this narrative that Biden had some kind of momentum, which I don't think was ever true. They managed to tamp down Bernie Sanders. But here we are 4 years later, an RFK Jr. anti-establishment challenge to this establishment, this tired, lame establishment. Joe Biden is not popular with anybody, Democrats, Republicans, independents. Nobody wants Joe Biden. So RFK Jr. absolutely has a lane here. They are not going to let him present his argument on a national platform like a debate stage. One reason they don't want to elevate him in any way, but the bigger, more important reason they don't want to elevate what he has to say in any way. His anti-establishment message goes against the heart of what the DNC stands for, and they are not going to put that on national television.
When it's the anti-establishment candidates who seem to be making the big noise and getting the support, it's time for the establishment, I think, to rethink their priorities. Joe Schaefer, thank you ever so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We dismiss history at our peril. Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Entertaining, informative, and just plain fun. Watch Liberty Nation's The Conservative Five. Produced by conservatives for conservatives. C5's The Left Free Zone. Hosted by Liberty Nation's Lisa K. Donner. Joined by a raucous, irreverent panel of authors. Deconstructing leftist narratives. Debating the hot topics. And remembering to laugh. Join the official conservative safe space.
You only did that to piss Jeff off.
Liberty Nation's The Conservative Five.